Hello, this is Ashley Smith, the mayor for Canyon City. I'd like to welcome everybody to our city council meeting tonight. We have a full house of council members. This is awesome. I love seeing everybody here. And also would like to welcome the Lions Club here as well. Just for housekeeping, as we are being broadcast up here on the dais, we are not wearing masks, plus we have a council member that's hearing impaired. But we do ask those that are sitting in the audience to wear your masks according to the FCDPHE guidelines. Let's go ahead and have our roll call, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Here.
Councilmember Jaquez? Absent. Councilmember Meisner?
Here.
Councilmember Reed?
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Here.
Mayor Smith?
Here. I'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Do we have any council member announcements for us today? Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you. We do not have a meeting this Wednesday, but I did want to say, to send, I'm sure, the entire council's best wishes out to Frank Jaquez and his wife as they're dealing with some health issues, and so that's the reason he's not here tonight. But my best wishes go out to him.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on that, there is no regular city council meeting on Wednesday, but there is a police chief open house. I believe that's 5. Is it 5 to 7?
That's 5 to 6:30 on Thursday, and that will be at the Fremont Center for the Arts. That's open to the public. It will be a come and go event, and look forward to seeing the public there and meeting our 4 police chief candidates.
Okay, so Thursday, 5 to 6:30 at the old post office for police chief open house to meet our 4 candidates. Any other announcements from council? Okay, I do want to let city council members know that on October 12th, there is a city-county meeting. That's where city elected officials from Canyon City, Florence meet with the commissioners. If you're available, that's a Monday at noon, and that's at the county building on the 2nd floor if you can make it. That's a good one to get to. And also a reminder, if you have any questions on the budget, we have that on our regular council meeting on October 21st, but if you have any probing questions you want answered, please let Tammy and Ryan know beforehand so they can do their proper research to be able to answer those adequately.
For the vision meeting first.
Yeah, so it would be a vision meeting.
Yeah, we're doing a public hearing in place of the vision meeting.
And I also wanted to ask City Council, I had a citizen come to me concerned on 9th Street with the way the lines are painted, that you kind of have to do a little bit of an S-curve, and she's very concerned about it. I said I'd reach out to council to see if you've heard from any council or other citizens as well. We'll start with Mandy Reed.
So I've heard, I actually got 3 different phone calls today in regards to that as well, stating the same thing. So when they're driving on the one side, all of a sudden it feels like you're on the other side, which I encountered that the first time a couple of days ago as well. I actually thought that the person on the other side of the street was driving wrong. Lo and behold, it was myself. I didn't realize that it had shifted that way when I went through. And so I did get 3 comments today from different citizens concerned about possibilities of accidents and asking for their reasoning on it. So I said that I would ask.
Mm-hmm. And we have a little bit of an answer for that. Councilmember Meisner?
Well, I don't want to be too old-fashioned, but if you're sitting on north or southbound 9th Street, you're facing the traffic coming towards you, and you have to do a complete lane shift in the intersection to not hit the oncoming traffic. Now, for me, that's okay, maybe, but for somebody that's not from town at night, I hope I'm not sitting in that turn lane that was created there, because it's crazy as far as I'm concerned. And the one at College isn't much different. It's about a half of a lane change at College when you're sitting there, because they added actual turn lanes. But the one at 9th Street and Main Street is ludicrous as far as I'm concerned. The southbound, you're a complete lane off. And then if you're going northbound on 9th, you then have to shift over, again, a lane to go forward. And it's like, I need to be a traffic engineer, I guess.
So, yeah, so when I did it, it was definitely like new and a learning curve, but I wasn't overly concerned, but I wanted to hear from you. I did get some reasoning from Ryan that originally those lanes were different widths, like from 7 foot to 10.5 and so on. And so now they're all equal 11 feet lanes, and that's why there's a little bit of curve.
A little bit?
It's a whole lane.
Yeah,
It's a
it's-
whole lane of a
It's whole
curve.
lane.
It is a whole lane.
Yeah.
My button's not working, so.
Oh, sorry.
I have had a lot of people talk to me about it as well, and I said that I was gonna ask about it as well tonight, so I don't know if there's anything we can do with it. It's just, it is what it is, but holy moly, a lot of people are having problems, because you are going into the other lane. I mean, I'll be honest, I drove up there the other day with my pizza trailer for the first time, I'm like, whoa, whoa, you know, but it is what it is. Everybody's just gotta learn it. It's
Cal-
a learning curve.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
So I had somebody tell me that we would have been better off putting a roundabout there, and they hate roundabouts. So, I don't know.
Ryan, can we take a special look at that?
Yeah, we can take a look and see, maybe, a guiding line through the intersection or something along those lines.
Well, here's something that this gentleman that said that to me, he said, when I was younger, when you switched lanes in the middle of an intersection, that was against the law. And I said, still is, and that's what we're telling people to do. So I think it needs to be fixed. I don't think it is what it is. I think it needs to get fixed.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at it and bring something back for council.
Councilmember Dennehy, your name did show up now. Did you have something else to say, or is that, it was just a delayed?
Yeah, it's way delayed.
Councilmember Meisner.
Well, I can't buy it is what it is, because they've put in extra lanes to accommodate traffic. And I haven't studied the traffic patterns, but I can't believe there's enough left-hand turns off of southbound 9th Street onto Main Street to justify a lane.
So the configuration is actually the same as before. The only difference is that the lanes are wider. So I pulled up a overhead satellite image of that intersection to confirm that. There is no change in the number of lanes that actually are at that intersection. It's just, it was a very tight fit before, where there was one lane that was only 7 feet wide. We'd like to see those somewhere between 11 and 12 feet, and that's what has happened, is those are 11-foot lanes now.
Councilmember Reed.
Another concern that was brought up, Ryan, with that same area, and I guess would be the businesses on the southwest corner, so the ones that are right behind Sunflower Bank. They had asked because of on the Main Street portion right there where the yellow was painted, at one point in time, that was where they parked, and so that has changed, and they didn't know that that was going to happen. They showed up one day and they didn't have the same parking that they had before. So I don't know if we can maybe look at that too and maybe have some conversations or reach out to the landlord of that building and maybe some of the businesses there. They just expressed some concern over that, so I didn't know.
On 9th Street?
Say that again?
On 9th Street?
Yeah, on 9th Street. I think it would be the southwest corner then, right? You know what I'm talking about. There's Sunflower, and then there's that corner building right there. So I got a phone call from them today as well, asking about that. So if we can maybe talk afterwards or follow
Sure.
up with them or something like that, that would be helpful.
All right, thank you for your feedback, Council. I appreciate that. One last announcement I have is that the Spooktacular, the trunk or treat that normally takes place on Main Street, is going to look a little different this year. It's going to be a reverse trunk or treat at Harrison on Halloween Day from 1 to 3. So the kids stay in the car dressed up. There's still a contest, but they still get all of their candy. I think the Daily Record and the DOC are the ones putting it on, and they're anticipating having a lot more candy to give out this year. However, most of our regular Halloween activities are remaining. They're still existing. They're still there for Halloween for our kids. They just look have a little bit more safety precautions in them. So that's good news for our kids. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do our recognitions and proclamations. Our first one is for the Main Street Flower Program and volunteer recognition. And so I'd like to recognize Lisa Himes and Manny Collin, Ginger Mita, and Taylor Clark as well that volunteered their time to water and keep the flowers beautiful, and for the time and equipment and labor in hanging and taking the flower baskets and taking them down. And it looks like Lisa might be on via Zoom, and I would like, if Lisa would like to, be able to share a few words with us. I know we really appreciate her years of dedication to keeping Main Street looking beautiful.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I just want to say that spending the time that I did on Main Street was a blessing. I loved every minute of the flower project. I loved seeing it again this year. And I think that if everyone in our community would just do one little thing, maybe as they're walking down Main Street, pick up trash. Anything that could make things a little bit better. Just think how much we could get accomplished. And it really takes so little. And I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a part of that program for so many years.
Lisa, there's not enough thanks to give to you and the other volunteers for your contributions to Main Street. Councilmember Gonzalez would like to say something.
Hi, Lisa. I just want to say thank you for putting your time and effort into those flower baskets. They really mean a lot to a lot of people, especially, I really love them. And not to take away from the volunteers that went along with this, I don't know if the city was recognized for donating those flower baskets this year. You know, it takes a whole effort, and I really appreciate all the volunteers that went into it, but with collaboration with Lisa and Manny, the city was able to help fund the flowers downtown. So as a collaborative effort, I would love to say thank you for bringing a little bit of joy to our downtown during such a scary time for a lot of us.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Hi, Lisa. I want to say thank you as well. Thank the city and that, but I've been downtown a lot in the evenings, and I've watched you, and I've watched how late you ride, and I've actually had the honor of taking a ride with you, and I've had the honor of watching my son ride with you many, many times. And just the effort that I watch you and the other volunteers, but I really see you doing this effort, and I've seen you doing it for a few years now. And I want to say thank you, because it makes that downtown street look just beautiful. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, thank you again, Lisa, and please, we have certificates for you and the other volunteers as well, and we'll make sure that each of you get those probably through the mail, it sounds like. So thank you again, not just for the flowers, but all that you do for our community.
Thank you so much. I love our community.
Next, we have a proclamation for Donald T. Packard Day for October 5th, 2020. First, we'll just have a moment of silence to honor our former Mayor Packard, and then I believe Lion Ron will give a few words. One of our lions will come up and give a few words in dedication, and then I'll read the proclamation. So first, a moment of silence to honor former Mayor Donald T. Packard.
Would you like me to do a few words now?
In just a minute, yeah. All right, we're ready for you to come and give us a few words in honor of Donald, if you don't mind. Come on up.
The words will be very few, because when you read the proclamation, that really is a lot of the things that Don has done. One item I did not see was that Don was also a Marine. And you never say an ex-Marine. He was a retired Marine. And so Don was with the Lions Club more years than I. I joined in 2000, moving here from New Orleans. And I suspect Don was in the club for at least 25 years. And he was very active in the club, as well as you will hear in the proclamation in the community. So we will all miss Don and miss his leadership. The high school fans will miss him, as he was the voice of the Tigers for many, many years. So with that, I will turn it to you.
Thank you. Donald T. Packard Day, October 5th, 2020. Whereas Donald T. Packard was a trusted community leader and voice, and whereas the City of Canyon City and Fremont County were blessed with his hard work, determination, and service, and whereas Don served 2 terms as a city councilman from 1977 to 1985, and then 2 terms as mayor of Canyon City from 1985 to 1989, and whereas Don was always a strong and loyal supporter of Canyon City High School, the Canyon City Music and Blossom Festival, and many civic-minded entities. And whereas Don was an integral part of the Lions Club, earning the Melvin Jones Award for his lifetime service. And whereas Don will be greatly missed by the community. Now, therefore, I, Ashley Smith, Mayor of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, do hereby proclaim October 5th, 2020 as Donald T. Packard Day in the City of Canyon City, Colorado. Thank you, Lions.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we'll now move to the consent agenda. We'll turn that over to Ryan Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Item 7A is to approve minutes for the regular city council meeting on September 21st, the special city council meeting on September 16th, and the Vision Committee meeting on September 23rd. 7B is to accept the resignation of Planning Commissioner Paula Shagley. Staff is going to ask that item 7C is removed from the agenda, the consent agenda, for later consideration on a different council date. 7D approves the CARES Act assistance and grant. That's 2 separate parts. 7E authorizes the city administrator to sign a linkage agreement between the Canyon City Police Department and Kindred Cares Children Advocacy Center. 7F authorizes the mayor to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the Colorado Department of Transportation for the CMAQ 2021 paving project. 7G awards bid number 4220 for turbidimeters to Hatch Company of Loveland, Colorado, in the amount of $20,387.40. 7H is a declaration of surplus for explosives and explosive-related items. 7I is to receive and file a list of bills.
Any questions from council? Oh, it's just a little delayed. Councilmember Meisner.
I realize you're pulling 7C, but this is probably more philosophical, but it's still an issue, I think. In that in page 3, correct me if I'm wrong, but if my vehicle gets stolen and gets used for whatever purpose and is held for investigation, it could be 6 months or so, could be a year, and my vehicle is left in storage because I can't pull it out. They don't release it because it's evidence. And at the end of the year, I'm then liable to the towing company for storage for a year on a vehicle. And I had absolutely nothing to do with it, based on the paragraph A, which is not uncommon with towing agreements, but that's crazy. There needs to be some provision in there for people's vehicles that get towed through absolutely no fault of their own and put in storage and then have to pay that fee. I mean, that's my feeling. I mean, there's been some publicity on some of those events where people have had their vehicles stolen. They went in, they've gone into storage and been in storage for a while. And then when they're done with them, they're saying, okay, come pick up your vehicle for $800. And the people who lost the vehicle have absolutely nothing to do with it. Go ahead, madam.
Well, I guess I have one question and one comment is, as a matter of restitution in the criminal matter, they may be able to seek that money from the defendant. I'm not saying they'll collect it, but the criminal court may allow them to seek it depending on the case. But I guess my question to you is, if they're not responsible, who should be? Do you want to make the city responsible for that cost?
Well, if we're the ones holding it,
Well, I'm just asking, if you want us to amend the agreement to bring
Well,
it back, we need to know.
I think that in those unique situations, the city is far more financially able to pay that than many people are. That's my opinion.
Mr. Meisner, could I make a comment on that?
You absolutely can.
If I may?
Yes, please.
Is it not true that if in the case that Mr. Meisner references, that's really a question for the district attorney about holding evidence versus releasing evidence. The police are only carrying out an order from an officer of the court in that case. And so your point is well made. I'm not taking away from your point. But I am saying that it's not the police, it's not the city that get to make the decision on what evidence is kept or what evidence is released back to the citizen. That's a function of the district attorney's office. Your point is well made. There does appear to be a big inequity there. If you're, through no fault of your own, you have something seized and you end up paying a year's worth of charges on it.
Well, it goes on to say that the chief of police has the authority to determine if the city should pay the charges.
Okay.
Well, I just don't think it should be subjective to a department head to make that decision on behalf of a citizen, when in black and white, if we could make black and white terms, that through no fault of theirs, that vehicle is being impounded and held.
I mean, you can modify this to make the city responsible for the payment. I guess I would suggest maybe putting in a maximum of some sort, maybe, or a maximum comes to council if it's there for some, I can't imagine a vehicle would be in there that long that it would be that big of a sum of money, but it could be. So I guess that's just my suggestion. I mean, we can change this to the city being responsible and the owner's not. I mean, the tow company's not gonna care. They just want to
Well, I
be
guess
made
part of the question is number one, it needs to be paid by the person who stole the vehicle in some way, and I'm not sure if that's the proper place for taxpayer money to be paying back victims of crime of the community.
Yeah, I guess my point was there's a mechanism for the person who is and they have to be convicted in order to obtain restitution. So that may not occur. There's lots of ifs and variables in that, and we don't have any control over that process, and neither does the tow company. So I wouldn't venture into that, but, to your point, I don't know if paying for someone's vehicle to get out that's your call, to use taxpayer money that way.
Interim Chief Wagner, how often do we hold vehicles and what's the average cost, would you say?
I wouldn't have the average cost, but I can tell you that in the event that a victim's vehicle is used, let's say in a crime or a robbery, we would normally have that vehicle towed back to our impound lot, which is right behind our office. If there's any fees associated, it's usually going to be the tow, and you got to remember that usually insurance companies, the victim's insurance company is usually going to pay that. As far as charging the victim any kind of extra fees, we're not going to do that because obviously we don't want to victimize them twice either. It would have to be a special circumstance, a set of circumstances if we were to charge them any storage fees, as if maybe the victim was somehow involved. There was other circumstances we couldn't control, but if it's in our impound lot, we're normally not going to charge like that. Like I said, if we did, that's going to be something that's going to be a rare occurrence.
Okay, is there any other brief comments from council? Considering that we're taking this off the agenda tonight, I don't want to beat it too much, but I want to make sure we give you the right direction moving forward. Well, I don't know if it's on this particular thing. Okay, Mandy?
Mine's super short, just to make it easy. On page 4, letter D, looks like there's just a typo right there. It says $1,000,000 general liability insurance policy.
That's probably right.
So I don't think anyone has to get 1,000,000 anything. So I just noticed that in there, so I thought I'd just bring it out.
I think the million, or the 1,000 needs to come out. Got
That would
it,
be a
thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Well, I just was curious to know why it was being pulled tonight. What was the reasoning behind pulling 7 seats?
We had some of the tow companies had some additional questions that we need to get clarification on. Those came in at the last minute.
Okay.
Councilmember Meisner.
I realize we're pulling it, but if we can get the problems addressed now instead of next time, then it seems like, as luck has it in our society, that problem with a vehicle getting towed and confiscated happens to the people that are least able to pay for it. And it just seems like that's the way things happen. But then on page 9, it seems like that they talk about upon arrival to the lot, entrance access to the vehicle will be limited to tie-down equipment, blah, blah, blah. And then when you go down to item C, where they're talking about identifying property of $400 or more, who's searching that vehicle for that $400?
Tammy, that would be a question for the PD. Who's actually going in through that process? Is that the officer?
It's going to be the officer, and that's normally if we either get consent from the victim or we're having to serve a search warrant on that vehicle for whatever reason. It would be our best guess if there's property that's worth $400. We'd have to make a decision whether or not something has to be pulled from that vehicle, because we don't want to leave valuables in those vehicles if we do find something. And we do have vehicles that come back to us from other agencies that may not process them like we would. We've had victims bring their vehicles back to us that there was items left on them that didn't even belong to the victim. So we actually, before we tow or right after we tow, we actually inventory the vehicle to make sure there's no valuables in there.
Who's we?
The officers do.
Well, that's not what paragraph D states. It says the contractor will immediately notify the chief of police of the existence of any property of substantial value, which suggests that contractor is actually searching that vehicle. Which
Okay.
I'm not an attorney, but I don't think that sounds quite right.
I'll respectfully disagree. I don't read it that way. I think if the contractor happens to notice something, like a computer in a back seat through a back window, they are to notify the PD immediately. That's how I read that. That's just an onus on the contractor. If you notice property that you think is of that value, you are to notify the city. But Chief Wagner is correct. The inventory search is performed by the police department and not by the contractor.
Okay, so we have some direction for you and some more information that we'd like to have before this gets brought back to us. Any other quick questions from council? Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick, did you have something?
Yes, I was just going to ask Councilman Meisner that the towing charges on vehicles, which started this conversation, right now it's the chief of police, a supervisor or the chief of police or the chief's designee can determine that the charges are paid by the city. Would you feel more comfortable if that was the city administrator that made that determination?
Okay, yeah, I guess. It's not that I distrust the police, but I'm just telling you, the guy that cannot afford it is the guy that gets stuck.
Yeah.
I know numerous cases where people that are financially strapped wind up in these predicaments and essentially just give up their vehicle because they can't afford to get it out.
Not that you don't have enough to do, Ryan, but
I think we have direction. We can make some alterations and bring this back to council when it's ready.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from City Council on items on the consent agenda? Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Yes, I did have some additional comments. I did make those comments in a different form about the surplus explosives that we have. And I think that's something that will be addressed in a different fashion. The reason that we have so many explosives.
Maybe you
Yeah.
could give them to council.
Item 8.
I could give them.
And why did we get them if we don't have a team to use them?
Yeah, at one point, we did have trained officers for those explosives. We no longer do, and they are past their useful life, and that is part of the reason why we're entering into this IGA with the sheriff's office, so they can use them for training purposes and properly dispose of them.
How safely were they stored out by Tunnel Drive or by the PCC? That sounds like
They're actually in explosive-related rated boxes, and the only set of keys is with one of the commanders. And I agree, I'm not into the explosives, so I would rather see them go to somebody who's trained and that can use them for training purposes if needed. But we've not had a SWAT team, a regional SWAT team here. We do have 2 members that are with the sheriff's office that volunteer with them, but those items will be going to them, and they are trained in that handling of those type of explosives and explosive-related items.
Okay, thank you, Interim Chief Wagner. We appreciate you being here tonight to answer our questions.
Sure.
Councilmember Meisner.
I've probably asked this question before and looked like an idiot, but do we not get credit card things every meeting?
No, not every
Just
meeting,
once a month?
month.
I thought I recalled that.
Yes,
So
sir.
I didn't ask that question.
Yeah, so
Madam Mayor?
speaking, go ahead.
I was going to make a motion. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I do have a couple questions.
Oh.
Speaking of charges, I did see that there was one for $15,750 to UCOG for recycling. And I do recall that the UCOG is discontinuing their recycling program, and so what's that about?
That is for the 2020 services for this
Okay,
year.
For this year.
Yep.
Okay.
With all the COVID and some changes at UCOG, some of the billing was delayed. So we're getting them paid for the 2020 year.
Okay. And then I also wanted to make sure that we publicly thank Planning Commissioner Paula Shagley for her service on the Planning Commission as we accept her resignation. On the CARES Act assistance and grant, it didn't really go into how much grant money is going to Loaves and Fishes and to who is it going and how is that all working? It says there's 2 separate parts.
There's one specifically for Loaves and Fishes. The other one is to use the CARES Act funding to come up with grant programs. And we do have Brandy Fowler on the phone to walk through some of the grant program and how we're looking at setting it up. Some of the first part that doesn't have funding attached to it or a dollar amount attached to it, that's about trying to set up a program and get the money out into the community. As I've stated before, the CARES Act funding has been extremely hard to utilize. There are so many restrictions on it. What we're trying to do is put together and partner with some of our local agencies with utility assistance, that already run utility assistance programs for people who are hurting right now. In addition to some of the food banks and making sure they have enough food for the holiday season and winter coming up, to make sure that we're taking care of the citizens of the community. And Brandy, do you want to talk a little bit more about some of the mechanics of that?
Yes, thank you. The first one for the Loaves and Fishes, we're still working on the finalized numbers of those, and we can provide those to council when they come through. But they provide for our community utility, rent, and mortgage assistance, and they're part of our food bank as well. And so what we're trying to fund for them through the CARES Act is that exceeded portion from their budget. So they've had a higher increase in demand due to COVID. And so we're looking to fill that gap because they've already extended their budget for the year and there's still 3 months left of our year, 2 months left at this point. But we're looking to fund that and finalizing the numbers because they already have those programs established. We'll fund the amount and then they'll fund the individuals who need rent, mortgage, utility assistance, and then they'll buy those extra food boxes that are needed. For the other piece of that, we would like to create a grant using the CARES Act money to help the need of our local community through providing temporary solutions to their COVID needs that can help create really comprehensive solutions that fit under that very strict guideline. So that would be temporary walls to their outdoor dining to keep the heat in and create some more outdoor patio space with temporary flooring and chairs so that they can extend their capacity while their capacity is limited due to those regulations, along with a couple of other things that we can fit in, like the food program, and just asking for those individual asks that we'll have to run through the attorney to be sure that they are fundable, but offering that out to the community so they have a chance to let us know those needs and we can fund what we can through nonprofits and churches and the schools and the small businesses.
Thank
Does anybody
you.
have questions?
Thank you, Brandy. This might be a good time to recognize our grant writer, Brandy Fowler, and several members of our staff. They have gone, just way above and beyond. When you say go the extra mile, they literally went the extra mile in providing those 60 gas heaters for our businesses. I just assumed that they ordered them online, and I found out through Ryan that you can't find them online because everybody wants them. And so they've been making phone calls all over Colorado to see where they are in stock and driving out of town to go pick them up. Little batches here, little batches there. And they not only just picked up the heaters, but they also spent, I don't know how many hours putting them together for the businesses. So they are ready to go. And you have all the names of those who are involved, but I just wanted to make sure that we give them their due thanks and recognition for really just making that extra effort to be business friendly and to help our businesses during this time of need. I'm excited about it. I was down at First Friday downtown. I think our businesses are excited about it too. And just thank you so many times over.
I appreciate that, Madam Mayor. Dirk and Dave from our maintenance and facilities team were the ones who did a lot of the pickup and assembly. Dana Whitley from our purchasing was the one who's calling around making orders. Tammy Nordyke, our finance director, has, in her spare time, just stopped in at local Lowe's and Home Depots checking to see if they had any of these heaters in stock and putting them on hold so that we could pick them up later. Obviously, Brandy has been working her tail off, contacting businesses and trying to see what the need for this type of equipment was. And then Tom Dixon, our brand new Main Street program manager, he's out there as well talking to people. And he just started last week, but he's hit the ground running out there, letting people know about this program and getting the word out.
And to clarify, that is also Colorado CARES Act money.
It is.
That's very restricted. We had a comment on Facebook that we should have spent it on potholes, but we couldn't spend it on potholes. It had to go to COVID-related expenses, and I'm really happy that we can help support our businesses by doing that.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why this item D is on here and it's worded the way that it is. We're trying to get this money out there, and unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of time left to use it. I believe we need to let the county know by the end of November, what we have allocated and what's going to be spent by the end of the year. So we're just trying to find creative ways to get that money out into the community.
Word is if the stimulus gets passed again, that it will be more flexible for municipalities. I hope that's actually true. Because we've made so many phone calls and reached out to so many different entities and elected officials, and our hands are completely tied, and it's through the federal government. Councilmember Reed.
I just wanted to add one more thing just as a thank you. I just wanted to say, going the extra mile, I'm pretty sure I've seen Brandy walk extra miles every single day for the last several weeks up and down Main Street, talking to businesses, just being a smile, and just willing to help with anything, whether it's hearing a gripe or a compliment, or I just wanted to really say thank you so much, Brandy, for that extra time. And it's just been so wonderful to see someone so passionate representing the city going up and down Main Street. And it's been really nice to see you down there. And I think that, I hope that the businesses that are down there have been just as warm and receptive to you, because it's just been really great to see Brandy up and down the street running around and just helping everybody and having that as the face of the city. So thank you so much again, Brandy, for that extra time and effort.
Thank you so much, Mandy. I appreciate that.
Brandy, do you have any reaction to, feedback from the community as you've been going out?
We've been received so very warmly by everyone, and I appreciate everyone's understanding, and our hands are very tied in our funding, but we're trying really hard to get those pieces out to help increase capacity and keep everybody's doors open through the winter. And you see just the thanks and gratitude from our wonderful business owners like Mandy. So thank you all very much for your warm and very kind responses.
And also for clarification, those 60 heaters they're not just for outdoor patio seating, they're for any nonprofit or business that has had to move outdoors in order to comply with COVID regulations. And you just need to come first serve to City Hall to obtain those.
Yeah, there's a small, review process, but we're trying to, we have 60 heaters. I think we have received 65 requests. We're trying to get our hands on some additional heaters so we can accommodate everybody.
Oh, wow. So those requests came in pretty fast.
They did.
There's a really big need. I have one last question, and this might be for Adam Lancaster, and that's on the CMAQ for those dirt roads that are going to get paved. And there was a group of citizens that were here about a year ago. They wanted to make sure that their road got paved, and I couldn't remember the street. I just wanted to make sure that their street was getting paved.
That was a project we did earlier this year. That was
Okay.
Bridge Street and 8th Street.
So we got that one taken care of. Very good. All right. So we are ready for a motion now. And remember to amend it for the removal of 7A.
7C.
7C.
Madam Mayor, I'll make the motion.
Sure.
Make a motion to accept the agenda and consent agenda for the October 5th City Council meeting with removing item 7C from the agenda.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Councilmember Meisner, I see that you had pushed your button again. Did you have an additional
No.
comment?
I was going to do a motion if nobody
Oh,
else did.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
Any more discussion? Then I'll call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion has passed. We're now to the administrator's report.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. We have talked a lot about most of these things already. The general government meeting this week is canceled. In its place, we'll be doing a joint session next week on October 14th at 6 p.m. That will be with House O. Levine. It'll be between the Planning Commission and City Council. We will do that in chambers. However, House O. Levine representatives, they will be Zooming in to do their report. The comprehensive plan, we've had 377 responses to the community-wide questionnaire. The community facilities questionnaire that went out to our local government agencies, we've had 21 responses to that. And then the map.social, we have 24 maps completed with 101 comments. The community-wide questionnaire, that has come to an end, but we are leaving map.social. That will be open the entire time, and we will fold those comments in as we can. So we're looking forward to having House of Levine next week, giving us that presentation on what they, some of what they've learned through the community engagement process, but and they will also be starting with giving us information on the diagnostic of their review of the code, chapter 16 and 17. We had a meeting, the economic development staff and myself and our finance director, Tammy Nordyke. We sat down with the county assessor and the county attorney to review urban renewal and the effects that's going to have on the assessor's office, and working on what the processes that we can change within City Hall to make things easier for them, so they can easily identify projects that are happening within the urban renewal area and identify those values. So we're working on that, that collaboration. We also met with the Royal Gorge Regional Sports Park. Their market analysis people were in town a week or so ago looking at the community, the space that they want to do, where they want to do this east of 4 Mile Ranch. And hopefully those reports will be coming back here probably within the next couple of months. We have begun planning for our EPA Brownfield Multipurpose Grant application, and there will be a public open house for that application. That's going to be happening on Monday the 12th. That's not something that council is required to be at, but we are having that open house so we can get feedback from the community. We are inviting developers and those who have some brownfield sites specifically to that, but it is open to the public, and that will be taking place here at City Hall. And then from the building department, we're continuing to see a lot of activity from the building standpoint. We're anticipating that we will meet or exceed the number of houses built that we did last year. We'll probably be closer to 40 this year. So we know it's a huge need in the community, and we're still trying to get those housing plans out and turned around as quickly as possible, and see as many new homes built as possible.
How many did you say we've had year to date?
Year to date, I believe we have had 35 or so, and we know that we have about 7 routing sheets still out there. So, and anticipate more by the end of the year. So, I would expect we're going to be somewhere in the low 40s this year. Last year, I think we did 32 or 33. And then we've got the Canyon Proud Cleanup Trash Voucher Program. Because of COVID, we couldn't do the trash voucher program earlier in the spring like we normally would have. Usually brings a large crowd to City Hall and people moving through the upstairs lobby. So instead this year we're doing the dumpster program. So we will have dumpsters set up around town this Friday the 9th, and then also on Friday the 23rd. So there will be 2 weekends where you can, or 2 Fridays where you can do the cleanup and take any of the debris or any trash you want to take to those dumpster sites. And then we already mentioned the meet and greets for the police chief interviews. Those interviews themselves will be taking place on Friday as well. And those will have 3 panels, and I believe council members have let me know that they're going to be participating. We've got all of that scheduled and ready to go. So we're excited to see these candidates come in later this week and to host them. I'll be taking them on a community tour on Wednesday. They'll also be doing a police ride-along. We're they have two meet and greets actually on Thursday. They'll be doing a meet and greet at the police department for police staff, and then they'll be doing the meet and greets for the community that evening, and then interviews on Friday.
What time do we need to be here for interviews on Friday as council members?
I will get you that information. I believe we're starting promptly at 8 o'clock, so if you want to show up just a little bit before that.
7:59.
And then we also mentioned the budget hearing on 10/21, so that will be a regular a special city council meeting, so we do need to make sure that we have a quorum here for that event, or for that meeting. So just want to remind everybody of that, and with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councilmember Meisner.
Thanks. I have some questions that aren't on his report, but are relative to that.
Sure.
The first one is, there's one of the new signs on westbound Highway 50 at the Abbey. I seen some guys out there working today. I didn't see what they were doing. But there's a sign right before you, as you're westbound on Highway 50, right before the entrance to the Abbey. And
Okay.
it shows you, that's how you get to Oil Flats.
Yeah, but it doesn't go to Oil Flats, it goes to the Abbey.
I mean, right as you're coming up to the Abbey
Okay.
entrance, there's one of those signs there, and it's got 2 or 3 designations
Red
on it.
Canyon, maybe.
But it says Oil
Yeah.
Flats,
That
and
direction.
if those people are turning there, they're not getting Oil Flats. I mean, they could, but they would
Okay.
say, that's the last time I'm doing that.
Take a look at that one.
Hey, Ryan. Hey, Ryan, this is Adam.
Go ahead, Adam.
We're already planning those modifications. The modifications already been ordered.
Okay, thanks.
Awesome, thank you, Adam.
And then and while Adam's there, I noticed Meadows, they're doing concrete. What's the reasoning there?
I believe it
The
has.
subgrade,
Yeah.
yeah, the subgrade is way too weak to support asphalt. That's one of the reasons it was in the condition it was in.
Okay. And I haven't heard anything lately about Buxton with everything else that's going on. We spent that money, is something happening?
It is. We've got Tom Dixon, the new Main Street Program Manager. He's going through training on Wednesday, so we had that scheduled as soon as he started. So he'll be going through that, and then we've started receiving reports from Buxton, including visitor analysis and things like that. So we'll be compiling that into a report that we can give to council.
Hasn't some of that already been distributed, though? I saw that somebody had a spreadsheet.
Go ahead.
What, I'm sorry, what was that?
Somebody had a spreadsheet, from the Buxton.
We have a lot of spreadsheets from Buxton, so
Okay.
there. You know,
It's
there
getting
could be-
used?
There could be something that was
Yeah.
distributed, but absolutely. We've got mobile analytics that show up as spreadsheets. There's the consumer propensity report that also shows up as a spreadsheet. So that could be any number of things. But yes, it is being used.
I believe those were the materials that we saw when we were deciding whether to use Buxton
Nope,
or not.
I
Since
spoke with-
then?
Yep, I
Yep.
spoke with the
Oh.
business owner.
Yeah, well, good, it's good to know that
Yeah.
people are utilizing it, that's what, our hopes and
Yep.
dreams were for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of Tom's first activities is going out. There's the LSMX, the marketing tool for the businesses. So we're going to get him trained up on that so he can start going out to businesses and talking about that and getting them signed up to use that tool.
Councilmember Meisner?
Just quickly, are we still on track with having some kind of a meeting on affordable housing that I had requested a while back with you and the mayor? At a vision meeting?
Well, we did have a meeting with Sally McLean? How is it?
Sully Clark.
Sally Clark from the USDA representative, and we talked to her about affordable housing. And I don't know what needs to come first, but she had mentioned helping us get a roundtable put together with a lot of different investors and developers and other entities where we could sit down from statewide representatives or even regional and talk about affordable housing for Canyon City. So I'm not sure, Ryan, we
Yeah,
probably need to follow up with Sally And then, but we do have that housing report.
Well, the concern comes
too.
from contractors is having available lots that in that affordable range where, that seems to be very limited inventory in Canyon City, and that's their concern.
Right, and, Rick and I, we had some meetings with some of the contractors to discuss some of that. At the meeting next week with House O'Levine, I believe, affordable housing is going to be one of those topics that they heard quite a bit, so that topic will be brought up quite a bit as well. But if we need to set something up beyond that, and I think that's what we were waiting for, was because we had those 18 individual meetings scheduled for House O'Levine, those interviews. We were waiting for some of that feedback as well before we scheduled something formal.
Are we getting some of those builders and contractors involved in this meeting that you're talking about?
Not on Wednesday. They were the ones that were interviewed, that House O'Levine will be providing feedback regarding on Wednesday.
And just one last comment. How's the water meter study going?
Yeah, I talked to Bob about that today, so we'll be getting that to you soon.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ryan while we have him? Okay, thank you, Ryan. We're going to move on to item number 10A, and that's first reading and adoption by title only of Resolution 21, Series 2020, entitled, "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado, repealing and readopting the city sidewalk cafe permit requirements and procedures and the design and development standards for sidewalk cafes."
So when the original sidewalk cafe regulations were drafted, they were drafted with the idea that they would not have any walls to these structures, and a lot of it was had to do with the look and feel and aesthetics of Main Street and being attractive and trying to drive activity downtown. We didn't want to block people from seeing activity happening on Main Street. But obviously with COVID the way it is and trying to social distance and expand occupant loads, we have some changes here that we're requesting that would allow for temporary walls to be put up from the months of October through April to allow for heat to stay in these structures during that time. And we have Adam Lancaster on the phone. He drafted the resolution. Adam, is there anything else that you would like to add regarding the changes to these regulations?
Other than essentially what we're allowing is a temporary enclosure, and that wasn't provided for previously. We don't want this to be an addition to their building. We don't want something permanent there. We do want that vibrancy and activity to be seen during the summer months. And so we have also based this set of changes off of a proposal by a local contractor who's trying to help out one of these local businesses. And so we've tailored it somewhat off of what he's proposed, and then tried to keep it within the spirit of what the intent of the Sidewalk Cafe is.
So I do just want to clarify for council, this only has to do with sidewalk cafes that are in the city right away. So folks who are building sidewalk cafes on their own property, this doesn't apply to them.
Correct.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
So I just have a question. This was first drafted in 99, is that correct? 1999?
Yeah, so we've been doing Sidewalk Cafe since 1999.
Okay,
And
so.
then we've changed or updated it a couple times since then.
Okay, so explain to me the red line version. That's just talking about, is that all we're talking about tonight, is adding the red line version to this?
That's correct.
Okay.
The only thing that's changing is what's red.
Okay.
And so it allows for the heating and the enclosure and the heating within the enclosure that we're allowing them to build.
Okay. And so when I'm trying to understand. So when the governor said you can eat outside, you can eat 2 blocks away, you can do whatever, we still went back to this resolution and created outdoor seating around this resolution, correct?
No,
At the beginning of
outdoor seating
COVID?
was already there. The outdoor seating was already there the whole time.
The problem right now.
Yeah, the only thing, the sidewalk cafe has been in place, and we have sidewalk cafes now, and we've had them for years. The difference is this will allow them to build an enclosure around that sidewalk cafe during the winter months.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Dolly? I don't know.
I don't know that I'm asking the right question, so
Okay.
let me think about it. Thanks, Adam. Let me think about what I need to say for a minute.
One of the things that kind of changed is when people wanted to go to outdoor patio seating, if that was new to them, one thing that they did have to change was their liquor license. So that might be something you're thinking of. So when the COVID came, if they didn't already have their liquor license boundaries, including the outdoor patio seating, they had to change that.
Okay, so that does kind of lead me into the question that I'm trying to get to. If they didn't have outdoor seating, so, a restaurant downtown did not have outdoor seating, but they decided to do it through the pandemic, did they have to pay a permit to increase occupancy, or does
We
it
don't-
not? They did?
We don't charge for sidewalk cafe permits.
Okay.
If they held a liquor license, they would have had to modify their license to include that outdoor area. They provide us with a site plan of their sidewalk cafe proposal. We make sure it meets the standard. We approve it. It's a really quick process, and then they are allowed to do what they do.
Okay, so then moving forward into looking at heating, they can set up removable partitions per se to use during the winter months to help keep them warm.
That's correct, and keep them dry. Yep.
Okay, all right, understood, thank you.
Councilmember Meisner.
I have multiple questions, but the first one's really on page 2, item E, halfway in the paragraph. And I realize this has been there, but it seems kind of weird that at the end of each business day, establishments are required to clean, sweep, and wash. We're expecting them to wash that sidewalk every night?
If it needs it,
Didn't say
it's
if
no
needed.
different than if they had food spilled on the floor inside their restaurant. You would think that they would clean that up. The same thing with the city sidewalk.
It doesn't say if needed.
Because we don't, so we don't, so again, obviously it's as needed. I mean, you don't have to sweep something that doesn't need swept.
That's not what it says.
Well, for a lot of downtown businesses, having clean sidewalks is a really big deal. Some downtown business authorities, they actually hire someone to
Right.
pressure wash their sidewalks regularly.
Which we did.
Once.
We do it
Well, we did it.
we did it once. And we did it for the small business revolution.
It was actually for Blossom.
Oh, for Blossom,
Yeah.
okay. Let's go to, is it all right if we go to Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick, and then we'll come back to you so he has a chance?
Yes, I have a comment on page 4, and I realize these are existing regulations at the bottom when it talks about permit transfer, and I would just suggest that we add some clarifying language there. It says, "A sidewalk cafe permit may be transferred to a subsequent operator of the same establishment, provided that the transferee continue to operate under the same terms and conditions of the improved permit," which include insurance requirements. But if I have the permit and I write on the permit, this permit is transferred to the subsequent operator, that would seem to me to fulfill the requirements of this. And so I suggest that we say a sidewalk cafe permit may be transferred by the city engineer, adding the words "by the city engineer" after transferred, to make it clear that it's not a function of the permit holder.
Councilmember Reed?
I would prefer the administrator, but the engineer will work.
And put by the city.
Well, the city engineer is the one who has control of the permits.
you're right.
They apply to the city engineer, that's why I
You're
said
right.
city engineer.
Councilmember
And the
Reed.
transfer,
Oh, sorry. Did you have something to
What
say,
if-
Adam?
the actual function of the permit, so the permit form, which is not included in the packet, but that type of transfer is actually a function of that permit. So that form that they fill out, whether it's a renewal, a new, or a transfer, and then that approval gets my signature.
Oh, then I'm good. I'm good with the current language then.
So you're good with the current language? Okay. Councilmember Reed.
So I recognize that what we're focusing right now is, the red writing on this, but having gone through it, I do think that there would probably be some wisdom into taking a little bit of time and looking at the entirety of it and seeing if there's some revisions that need to be made. As Councilmember Gonzalez mentioned, it was originally done in 1999, so there's been more than a pandemic since then, and so there might be some opportunities for us to continue to maybe look at some of the other requirements, some of the other goals that we're trying to do as we move forward. Since it's sitting up here, it just might be something we want to consider
Can I
because
respond to that?
I found
So,
some things with it, and I
Council-
know everyone else did. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, so Councilman Reed, so the last update was actually 2015. It was a very big overhaul. And we did, at least I did, try to take the opportunity at this point in time to make those changes that maybe were seen at least by staff. So I did reach out to building department, the public works inspector who issues these permits, the economic development, Rick Harmon, and so this was a result of that feedback. So at least at a staff level, we didn't get anything back that we thought was problematic or issues that we've had and that sort of stuff. So if there's something that City Council is seeing or of other applicants or potential applicants that they're seeing, then we would gladly come back and revisit those at any future time.
So forgive me, because this is embarrassing. Would someone give me kind of a quick recap of what Adam just said? Because I did not catch most of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Adam.
So Adam said that the last time it was revised was actually 2015, and it was a fairly extensive overhaul.
Okay.
He did reach out to the building department, planning, zoning, the public works director, as well as Rick Harmon, the economic development director, to get feedback on the entire
Okay,
document.
so we have looked at it then.
Yes.
Thank you, Adam. Sorry about that.
Adam also said that
problem.
if there are still problems or concerns, we can still address those, absolutely. Has anybody heard of any problems? We've got a lot of new patio seating this year. Have there been any issues from our business
The
owners
biggest one is the one that triggered this revision, which was
Is
the
the-
request to enclose.
to be able to enclose in winter
Yeah.
months?
Especially, as the weather's getting colder, it just makes sense. I think from our perspective, we want to see activity on the streets. It doesn't matter if it's July or November. If we can, help encourage that type of activity downtown and increased occupancy even outside of COVID, I think we should be making those types of changes.
I have to say that on First Friday, I absolutely loved being on the patio seating. There were so many people downtown. It was so vibrant. It was so fun. It was like, yes, this is the goal. And we were there. It was
Saturday
awesome.
night was too.
Was it? Awesome.
Packed.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yep.
Councilmember Meisner did have something?
I guess to Adam, but page 12, item G, it says that the cafes must be constructed of non-combustible materials. It seems like that item G is conflicting with item A that talks about plastic, and then item N, which talks about acrylic and plexiglass. I mean, as
Right, so
I'm
those
understanding
items-
it, I can't build a lot of the places downtown now have wood as construction for their outdoor cafes. And as I'm understanding it, if they were to enclose those, they could not use that same existing combustible material. Is that correct?
That's right. That's correct. And the problem with that is not because we don't want them to use a cheaper material in that. It has to do with the building code and the fire code. And so, as I mentioned before, this has to look and feel and smell like a sidewalk cafe. It cannot look and feel like a building addition. And because what happens with the building, if it becomes a building addition, then you trigger all other bunch of expensive requirements, such as ingress and egress and fire protection and different things like that. So when talking with the building official, you know, those items that are listed in the other sections, while they can burn and or melt, those meet a different standard of combustibility in terms of what that means in the building code.
And Adam didn't mention it earlier. I don't know, I don't think it was you, Adam, that reached out to the fire department, but Brandy Fowler, when we were setting up the heater program, we reached out to the fire district to get their feedback, and they provided some additional feedback around that as well.
So let me get a clarification. If they already have like wood on their structure for their fencing off of their patio seating, if they were to do plexiglass to enclose it, they'd have to get rid of the wood. So they have to start all over again?
The enclosure support and enclosure walls would have to be non-combustible, but they could leave, in theory, they could just leave their rail in place where it's at.
Okay. And
And
clarification
we're gonna,
too is that
Yeah.
they can use COVID grant money to help pay for those things. So that's.
oh, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So to
We
clarify,
most certainly want to,
go ahead, Adam.
we just most certainly want to encourage this activity. It's an important element of downtown.
So in plain language, to reiterate what the mayor said, that if I have a wood, which a good percentage of those are constructed out of wood currently, I'm going to have to I'm going to have to go around that wood with the metal or non-combustible framing to meet code, or to meet the requirements of this permit.
Yeah, and not only to meet the requirements of the permit, to meet the requirements of the structure that will need to be there to hold what they want to hold. So the wooden railings you see out there are not of adequate structure to do anything structurally. Most of them are set in like a concrete brick foundation base. They're loose. You could go and pick them up and move them. So we wouldn't want people attaching walls and plexiglass or glass to those anyway. So they're going to, just by the nature of building an enclosure, they wouldn't use those existing rails anyway. It doesn't mean that they would throw them away. They could set those aside for the summer months and then bring them back out. And I mean, it'll be up to each applicant to kind of figure that out as they go.
Or the plastic could be an independent structure.
They could build around it.
Right.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Well, I was just wondering about the plexiglass, if it could be on something like with casters that could be rolled around to make for larger seating areas if there's a larger group of people for outdoors.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
So
Yeah.
just use your imagination to try to fit inside the box.
So
Yeah.
going along those lines of Councilmember Gonzalez, I liked how in some of the other sections they had photographs of examples. I thought it would be really nice if there were also photographs for this section of examples of enclosures that can kind of help you get started on your thinking process of what could be.
We can certainly add some examples.
And I had another
Yeah,
question.
I thought of
Go ahead.
the same thing, and I looked online briefly and could not find any that I thought were really representative of what we were trying to do. And I thought, I know there's a couple applicants that are ready to do this or want to do this, and I thought, what a better idea than to use a picture of their examples.
Okay, thank you. Also, based on some of the previous comments on there, I think it's on the page that talks about the outdoor, let me see, the menu boards that would be on the patio seating. So if you're walking down the street and you want to look at a menu board, could that be covered under the Colorado CARES Act as well, if restaurants wanted to have a menu board on their patio?
I think we'd have to just confirm that would be an eligible expense. There's so
That'd be
many.
a touchless menu.
Right.
That would be awesome if we could make that available. Any other questions or comments from council?
I do.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
So back to the enclosure questions. What if it was a tent type material, or like you can rent those tents from city Canyon Rental.
Yeah,
Are those acceptable, or are those,
Not according to this.
I think part of it is because also of the COVID regulations. If it's enclosed too much, then you trigger the 30% or the 50% occupancy.
If it becomes a also if
yeah.
it becomes a permanent fixture, it's not eligible for the funds.
that's what I was wondering. Does it
Yeah.
become a permanent fixture if it's enclosed that way?
Yeah, and one of the things we've talked about, and Adam, you'll have to remind me of where this fits, but you know, something similar to what Coyote's Den does, where they have the removable zipper panels.
Yes.
Something along those lines is something that we talked about early on in this process. Adam, would that something like that be eligible for this if it was fire rated?
Yeah, I believe it would be. And it'd be probably a simple aluminum frame.
Okay. And then also on the menu thing, Salita's got that down. They have got sandwich boards out with their menu put on the sidewalk on F Street where it's all blocked off. So that's easy.
Councilmember Meisner?
Item H. So what we're talking about essentially is, and my question is the egress from the building and a secondary door? And I realize because that's creating a secondary enclosure, but I guess what we're talking about, if I wanted to build one of these enclosed outdoor cafes, I'm essentially going to have 3 walls. The one wall will have an opening in it with no door in it. And I'm going to have a ceiling, but it's not going to be closed against the walls because then I've got an enclosure. Right? Am I going in the right direction? I mean, how am I going to build 3 walls and a ceiling?
Again, that's up to the applicant. It could have up to 3 walls. It can be up tight against the building. It just cannot be structurally attached to the building. But it can be up tight against the building. Depending on how they want to configure their cafe, it could be just one wall on the street side. It could be just a wall on either side to block the wind, trap the heat. It's kind of limitless in what they want to try to do. With regards to item H, it just means they can't build this enclosure around an existing egress of the building and then add a door to the enclosure itself. So that anybody that's exiting the original building doesn't have to go through 2 doors.
I see that grant writer Brandy Fowler has her hand raised on Zoom. Brandy, did you have comments that you wanted to make?
No, ma'am, that was about the patio heaters and just letting you know that the application is on the city's website and it's not actually at City Hall. So they would need to go to canyoncity.org to fill out that application.
Thank you for that clarification. If there's no more questions, I would like to entertain a motion to pass this.
So are they going to have a ceiling or not, a roof? They can't.
No, they can have a roof, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They can have a roof.
It's basically a 3-sided building, and you put a door entrance on it.
Do what?
It's a 3-sided building. I mean, essentially, that's what it is. But you put the one side.
Structure, thank you.
3-sided temporary structure.
Temporary structure.
How do they fasten them to the sidewalk, or they don't?
Probably just put weights.
Go ahead.
Sometimes they hilt you into the sidewalk. This will require that to set on the sidewalk, so they can hilt you. There's again, just like with the existing fences, there's probably 3 or 4 different anchoring mechanisms in use down there today.
So we try to keep it flexible depending on how they want to do it.
Can they actually anchor
Right.
it in the sidewalk?
They could, but again, we have to look at the nature of that anchoring and how quote-unquote temporary that is.
Yeah, and we do have some of our outdoor seating areas are currently anchored into the sidewalk.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Okay, so I want to speak from experience, and many of you may have experienced this before, but those ground heaters will catch the wind like crazy. So I think we need to make sure that they're being put in at night. I came home and found one in my above-ground pool.
It says they're supposed to be taken in.
Are they? Okay, good.
They are.
They are dangerously.
Good to know.
Item D, page
Okay, good.
12.
I didn't see it, but good to know.
It doesn't say they got to be taken in, but it says that they have to be
Secured.
stored. And there's somewhere else where it says you got to clear your stuff off, and stuff that's going to blow, you got to move off.
I would like to entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Gonzalez.
We're a lively bunch tonight. I make a motion that we adopt on first reading by title only, Resolution 21, Series 2020, update on sidewalk cafe regulations.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Meisner.
Just a quick question or clarification, that the red line essentially was created in consultation with contractors that are going to be actually doing this.
Adam, I know
Correct.
you worked directly with one of the contractors that is going to be doing this, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
All right, I'd like to call a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
And the motion has passed unanimously. Thank you, City Council, and thank you to the staff who were really proactive in getting this to us as soon as possible to be responsive to our business's needs. And we'll now move on to item number 10B. That is introduction and adoption by title only of Resolution 22, Series of 2020, entitled, "A Resolution of the City of Canyon City, Colorado in support of the city's ballot question 2A, the Black Hills Franchise Ordinance at the November 3rd, 2020 election." Should I turn that over to Catherine?
Sure. So as you know, the Fair Campaign Practices Act allows council to pass a resolution either in support or in opposition to a ballot issue. This is a draft for your review and possible approval, and this is in order to support the Black Hills franchise ballot question on the November 3rd ballot. And the reason why you're seeing this now is ballots will start to go out this week.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick, would you like to say a few words about this?
I would just like to say that this resolution has been considered, considering the, actually, quite a lot of work that was put into achieving this franchise, including multiple meetings with industry professionals, industry attorneys, industry representatives, both wholesale power sellers and electric utility operators, and that this franchise is a pretty good deal for the city.
Councilmember Meisner.
My question, a statement and a question. The statement is the tremendous amounts of appreciation and gratitude to Caitlin and John for hammering out this whole process. I started this process, for those of you that wasn't here, was saying, we need to kick Black Hills out of here. Through their diligent efforts, they educated us in letting us know that that's not possible. Given the current situation and the current performance of Black Hills, aside from the rates, but from a legal standpoint, it's not practical. And from an economic standpoint, in my personal opinion, it's not possible. My question is, relative to this resolution, I would be more pleased if it had something in there that stated something to the fact that Black Hills is not interested in selling any of their assets, and any attempt to gain control of those assets would result in extensive legal action. And that is really the basis for all of this, is that we don't have an option at this point in time in terms of changing carriers. People don't understand that.
Catherine.
It's your resolution. It can,
I mean, that's all I'm saying,
Right.
is that
That's fine.
if John Doe Public were to read this, I would want them to know that council understands that Black Hills has already told us they're not interested in selling their assets, and if we're gonna take their assets, we need to go to court, and if you wanna know what that's gonna cost you, go look at Boulder. that's been working on it for 8 years?
They've abandoned it.
Yeah.
It's been abandoned now. It's too
Wonder
expensive.
why.
Yeah,
10 million.
after 10 million at least.
With
Count-
nothing to gain.
Right. Councilmember Gonzalez.
So I haven't been able to clearly answer this question that's come up to me. If this passes, if the voters choose to go with a franchise, how much do we get a year approximately from that franchise fee, and where is it going to go?
The franchise fee generates roughly $500,000 per year. That's at 3%. A sixth of that will go to undergrounding as per the new franchise.
And can I stop you there?
Sure.
This is not an increase
That's correct.
to the residents.
That's correct.
The undergrounding fee is not an increase to the residents. Okay.
We're taking the existing 3% and we carved out 0.5% of that 3% that will go specifically to undergrounding projects.
Okay.
Traditionally, we've used, it has to do with our right-of-way, so we've typically used it for improvements to the right-of-way. So you've seen, in the budget, you've seen alley projects and other similar type of street projects like that, or, making those types of improvements, and that's typically where that gets budgeted.
And have any raises been given to staff with that money?
With the Black Hills money?
Mhm.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
And I just wanted to reiterate, because I've seen the vote no on the Black Hills franchise signs all over town, that a vote no on this is not to get rid of Black Hills. It is specifically for the franchise agreement.
Thank you for that clarification. I'd also like to clarify, because a lot of the arguments are that they want Canyon City, the opposers want to make sure that Canyon City has explored all of their options. And I'll reiterate what Councilmember Meisner said, is that we did explore all of our options, and those companies who initially had an interest, when they found out that Black Hills had to either voluntarily give it up, and then they'd have to pay for all that infrastructure, or the city would have to condemn Black Hills infrastructure and prove in the courts that they were not providing electricity, and the $10 million whatever bill, that no longer became an option. When Pueblo voted down pursuing a municipality utility, that also no longer became an option. And so we have diligently explored other alternatives. We don't have them right now. But on the third whereas, it does clarify that just because we pass the franchise doesn't mean we can't keep looking.
Right.
We can still keep looking, we can still keep pursuing, we can still keep trying to find alternatives. We're not tied down, but what we do by passing this is make sure that Black Hills has all of these items and bullets held to their feet to make sure that they're treating Canyon City fairly and properly as they use our rights of way. I just wanted to clarify that as well. And again, thank John Hamrick. You did more than just meet with attorneys. You went to many meetings in Pueblo with Canyon City Energy Futures. You've met with other utility companies. You worked, and Caitlin Turner worked incredibly hard on this, so thank you. Any other statements from council? Then I would like to call for a vote, please.
A motion.
Or a motion. Thank you. I think that'd be proper for you to do that, Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
So, Mayor and Council, I will move that we approve resolution by introduction and adoption by title only of Resolution 22, Series of 2020, entitled Support of the Black Hills Franchise.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? And now I will call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you, council. That has passed unanimously. We are now on item C, second reading and adoption by title only. Do I need to read it, the whole thing, Catherine, on the second reading?
No.
So this is ordinance 16, series 2020.
Mayor and council, this is the second reading. This has to do with the condemnation of the 2 parcels in the city parking lot. We have not received any additional comments from the public regarding this, and at this point, we would ask for council to pass on second reading.
Councilmember Smith.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move that we adopt ordinance number 16, series of 2020 on second reading.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I will please call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez? Absent for vote. Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you, council. That is passed unanimously. We are now on item D, introduction and first reading by title only, ordinance 17, series 2020, entitled, an ordinance of the city of Canyon City repealing section 17.30.100 and 17.30.110B of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning sign contractor licensing. I'd like to invite our administrator to give a report.
Yeah, and we have Patrick Mulready, the city planner, online to give the report for this.
So, Madam Mayor, members of council, earlier this year, the city undertook an effort to transfer the obligation of the sign permitting or sign contractor licensing in Title V from the city clerk's office and put it into the building official's office because the building official already has systems in place for, keeping record of contractor licenses that have been issued. When that effort was undertaken, what was overlooked was that there was a specific portion in Title 17 pertaining to signs that referenced an outdoor advertising license that we have since done away with, and that required these applications to go through the city clerk's office. So what this ordinance is doing is bringing Title 17 into compliance with what was already approved earlier this year.
Any questions from council? I'd like to entertain a motion.
If Patrick says it makes sense.
Councilmember Meisner.
Madam Mayor and council, turning the page. My ordinance is blank.
It's ordinance
Second reading
17,
and
series of
adoption.
2020.
Right here.
You said 16 or 17?
17.
Oh, we missed, oh, sorry.
Last one.
I'll let John do it, somebody else.
I'll do it. Madam Mayor and Council, I recommend, I move that we approve through introduction and first reading by title only of Ordinance 17, Series 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City, repealing Section 17.30.100 and 17.30.110B of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning sign contractor licensing.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you, council. That is passed unanimously again. Now on item number E, we have introduction and first reading by title only of ordinance 18, series of 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City amending various sections of the Canyon City Municipal Code to clarify the appropriate appellate body for various administrative decisions provided for under the Canyon City Municipal Code. Catherine?
So this is the third time this has been brought before council for discussion and the first time for consideration, the third time for discussion. I'm going to kind of go over in broad brushstrokes the three general areas that this ordinance addresses, and then I'll take some questions, but of course feel free to interrupt me. The first issue is in chapter, and I don't have it up there, but chapter 2.52 of your code creates this kind of superseding provision for appellate appeals within the city, and basically says, the city council can hear all appeals notwithstanding any other provision of this code. And you have a multitude of different appeals processes throughout your code. And so this creates kind of an inherent conflict in your code in general. And in addition, inside that chapter, it has contradictions between its two sections. So what we have done, if you look at the ordinance, is we've addressed that whole chapter in section 2 of your ordinance. And we've rewritten that section to talk about the appeals to each different body that might hear an appeals. And city council's still in there in case there are any appeals that go to city council. And it talks about the procedures to city council. The appeals of the board to the Board of Adjustment are taken care of in Title 17. And then the appeals to the city administrator, it's a similar process as to the city council. So that's what we've done to address that issue. The second issue is in a provision of your code which specifically talks about, and it's the first one I think up there, 204030, and that's involving personnel matters. And this section of your code basically allows city council to call up or hear any type of personnel decision that the city administrator makes. Hiring, firing, demotion, it's the whole kit and caboodle. As is consistent with our previous advice, this is not the role for council to be an appellate body in personnel matters or be involved in personnel matters, except for those who are direct reports to you, like Ryan or myself. So our recommendation is that this section completely be repealed. Any appellate procedures for personnel issues will be handled in the personnel manual and the policies and procedures, which I think you'll be seeing in November. Those have not been finalized, but there are some in there, and they will be up for your discussion at that time. So, and that's section 1 of the ordinance. You'll see that's a full repeal of that section. The third kind of topic is just there's a lot of inconsistency just in general about who's hearing an appeal. And council's had some appellate, not this council, but some of you have had appellate experiences before. You've heard appeals that have come to you. And it's not fun experience for anybody. So what we've done is we've made it a little bit more consistent as to where appeals are going. And so this chart is all of the appeals sections in your code, and the yellow ones are only the ones that are being changed. So the white ones are where it says no change, obviously are not being changed. So licensing provisions, so how you have your initial decision maker, and then you have your where the appeals is going over there in that second to last column. Any type of zoning or building code decisions are, instead of going to the Board of Appeals, council sitting as the Board of Appeals, it's going to go to the Board of Adjustment. So those are in your building codes. Hey, Brandon, can you move it down one?
That's high tech.
I know, very, huh? So, same thing with public utilities there. You're going to your city administrator. If the authority is delegated, sorry, that says designated, should say delegated, appeal to the council if the city administrator is the decision maker. So you still remain the appellate body there under certain circumstances. Building codes, Board of Adjustment. One more time, Brandon. All right. More building codes, they're all going to the Board of Adjustment. And then the subdivision regulations, this is just a clarification in the fee schedule. It's just a mention of what the appellate body is. And then one more, Brandon. All right, so then there's just some zoning administrator and land use decisions will go to the Board of Adjustment. The Board of the Adjustment, as you can see on this last page, is the typical appellate body for zoning matters. And that is standard and typical in most codes, that things don't go to the city council. So that's that. So I'm happy to take any questions. Just to let you know, Planning Commission did, based upon our last conversation, pass the resolution to amend the subdivisions to address a minor change in the appellate body to the Board of Adjustment. They did that at their last meeting a couple weeks ago. So,
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Okay, so I have several questions. How come we didn't get one of those in our packet?
So you've been given this several times. This was attached to a memo that I have
Okay,
written
I
to
guess
you
I
laying
didn't
this
make
all
the
out.
coordination.
So,
Okay, so then, was there something that sparked this to be revised, or?
yeah, so I'll say the initial spark, well, I guess it was two things that I think they kind of happened in the same time frame. We've been actually working on this for over a year, trying to get this up to council for consideration. You first actually heard it last year. You probably don't remember. But the initial thing was that personnel provision, the one that we're suggesting that you repeal. That's a great concern for a legal liability standard for Corey and I. Obviously, that increases the city's liability in general, but also individual council members' personal liability when they get involved in personnel matters. And personnel matters are really sensitive topics, and those things have to happen. Those hearings have to happen in a public sphere, and that's just not the place for a personnel matter in a public sphere. To hear appeal and to hear, everything that happened within the city is just, it's not an item that's meant for the public, and it requires the employee to put that all on display. And so it just, for us, our recommendation is always to take that kind of stuff out, and that provision was rather alarming. In addition, we've had some appeals in the building, or not in the building, but in the zoning regulations, and we just noticed that there was some inconsistencies, that some things went to council and some things went to the Board of Adjustment, and there seemed to be no rhyme or reason as to they were probably amended at different times, is my guess. And so we just wanted to make it consistent and all have appeals go to one body. And the Board of Adjustment, that is their sole function, is to hear appeals. That's what they're created to do. And so it just made sense to make those changes. And then we noticed that inconsistency in just looking through we actually went through your whole code and all the appellate processes when we were finally decided to put something together for you. And that's when we noticed that conflict in chapter 2.52 where it was overriding everything and it just didn't make any sense. And so we just wanted to clarify that. You don't want to clarify that stuff when you have an appeal sitting in front of you. So.
Right. So then, so this is just about the appeals process. What if a constituent comes to us with a concern about a staff member? That doesn't take us out of the equation.
No, this has nothing to do with that.
Okay. Or a planning and zoning issue, or.
And your code doesn't address those things at all. It's just silent as to those.
And then, who is the Board of Directors?
The Board of Adjustment?
Adjustment, yeah.
So you do have a Board of Adjustment. I couldn't tell you who's on it. I apologize. It's a 5-member board.
Looks like Ryan knows.
And they meet once a month if they have an appeal, but they only meet when they have an appeal or a variance application. So their authority is super narrow. So if they could go a year without meeting.
Sure.
So, yeah. But you do appoint them, or the mayor does. Okay.
Ryan Stevens.
Yeah, Gary Clark, Randy Smith, Chris Freeling are 3 of the Board of Adjustments folks. I know we have a couple vacancies that we are working on addressing. Patrick, who are some of the, I believe we have 2 alternates, correct?
Eric Embry.
Bob Wellett and Eric Embry, I believe, are the other 2.
You are correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
They're meeting tomorrow night too, if you want to.
There you go.
Got all the time in the world.
Councilmember Meisner.
When you first started, I thought you said that council was still in there, but we are not the appeal body for any of this anymore.
You are the appeal body. Brandon, can you go up one? One more. All right, so right now that line, that public utilities, so if the decision maker is the administrator, you are still the appellate body here. That's the only place where you're still the appellate body.
So
However,
is that item C and D on page 4?
Hold on just a second. Item C and D on page 4.
Because I know you must have put that in there. And I say that with respect, but holy cow, what is that saying?
Oh, okay. So what you can't see is A of that section. So under this section, the city administrator can delegate the administration of this section to the director. And the director is the term used in that section, but it's essentially the department head. So if that's the case, if he's delegated, and Section A allows him to delegate, so if the city administrator or her has delegated, the city administrator becomes the appellate officer, okay, for lack of a better phrase, because he's not the initial decision maker. So in D, if he hasn't delegated it and he's the initial decision maker, well, we don't want him to be the appellate officer as well, and that's when it comes up to council.
Okay. Sub-question. Did we not have a discussion about department heads / directors? What was the end result of that conversation for consistency?
There wasn't an end result to that conversation, and I think part of what I'd like to I personally would like to see happen is when you have the personnel manual in front of you. Right now, believe it's all department heads. That's what it says throughout the personnel manual. And if you would like us to go through your code and make everything a department head, we'll do that cleanup ordinance. But this has been languishing for a really long time, I'll just be honest, and I didn't want to do that here because we didn't get clear direction as to what to call people. In your code, your finance person is your finance director and stuff like that. So it's a pretty substantial change for us to go through and make sure we got all those. And I want some consensus from council before I start diving into that. And you also need to decide whether you like that in your personnel manual, because those two things would be nice if they matched. So.
Really?
Councilmember Meisner.
So, there, in multiple places, we have in here where such decision shall be in writing and sent to the appealing party. One, it doesn't say how you're going to send it. And then somewhere in here, it actually talks about it being mailed to somebody. And as I've been reiterating for the last 5.5 years, if you're going to mail a document to somebody, there needs to be some kind of an ensure that it was delivered.
Certified?
Yeah.
And historically, we've been reluctant to do that, but if we're going to mail something, it needs to be mailed with some form of certification that they got it, versus saying, well, we mailed it, because we've heard that at council, that things were mailed.
So for the appeals that I've done, I don't know what previous administrators have done. We have sent those certified.
And we can clarify that.
I would appreciate it.
Can I make a suggestion when we clarify it?
Well, I don't know that, considering the changes in the postal service, but we want some kind of a, and I just saying that they may get rid of, signed signature, whatever it's called today, but I want some form of documentation that that the notice was received by the recipient. That's all I want.
What's your recommendation, Catherine?
I was just going to say that it could be either certified mail or by email if the email is available to the city. So
With return requested or something.
Yeah, return requested, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many times over the past 6 years I've heard, well, we mailed it out. We're not responsible to know if they got it, but we mailed it. We did our part. Well, we didn't do our part, in my opinion. We need to make for sure that it's in their hands. And however we do that, I don't care, but we need to have some process in policy that states that we're going to do that.
That's fine.
Because you're good about that, apparently, but I don't think you're going to be here forever. Well, could be, but. So that would be my, however you're going to modify that to say some form of.
We can definitely do that.
Any other questions by council? Then I'd like to entertain a motion with the modification for certified or email with return request to sender added to the language of the ordinance.
I'll try.
Councilmember Meisner.
Madam Mayor and Council, do I need to read that whole thing or just the ordinance?
Just the number in the series.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move that we approve ordinance 18, series of 2020, with a modification that will be done by the attorney, that any mailings or notices will be done with some form of guaranteed action.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye.
The motion has passed on first reading. Thank you, City Council. We are now on to item number 11, and that's going into an executive session. Councilmember Meisner, would you like to make
Sure.
that motion?
Madam Mayor, Council, I move that the City Council enter into executive session for the purpose to consider personnel matters pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024F and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in open session specifically for the performance objectives of the city administrator.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'll call for a vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Oh, wait,
Aye.
slow button.
Would you like to make a,
Well, just public comment. All we're doing is reviewing previous objectives. I don't want any public entity reading anything into the way that that statement's written there.
Good clarification.
thank you. Councilmember Meisner, we'll continue with the vote, please.
Councilmember Gonzalez,
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Aye.
All right, we are now moving into an executive session on personnel matter.